top shot blocker in the NBA. Guess who's number 2? The man right beside him, Walker Kessler. Here we go, underway on a Saturday afternoon in San Antonio.
Hey everyone, welcome back to NBA Today, where we recap the biggest moments from last night's NBA games. Today we've got a deep dive into a fierce matchup between the Utah Jazz and San Antonio Spurs. This game was packed with back-and-forth action, big performances, and unforgettable moments. So, let's jump right in. San Antonio was looking to defend home court and improve their record, but they ultimately fell short to Utah. This game saw both teams battle in the paint and on the boards, with Utah finishing strong after a close fourth quarter. A quick look at the stats reveals just how close and intense this game was. Utah focused on dominating the paint and earned a 18 rebounding advantage in the first half. San Antonio, on the other hand, was trying to find its offensive rhythm, struggling from the field early but fighting back in the second half. Let's talk standouts. For San Antonio, Victor Wembanyama was an absolute force with 24 points, 16 rebounds, and 7 blocks. His defensive presence is a big reason why he's gaining so much respect around the league. In fact, Bill Simmons recently ranked him 16th on his updated top 25 NBA players list, mainly due to his defensive prowess. Devin Vassell made his season debut and showed up strong, putting up 21 points. Rookie Stephon Castle was impressive, adding 23 points and making critical plays that kept the Spurs in the game. Keldon Johnson was productive off the bench again with 14 points and 5 assists, while Chris Paul struggled to find his shot, going 0 for 6. Utah saw big contributions from Lauri Markkanen, who led with 20 points and 6 rebounds, along with Collin Sexton, who scored 23 points and dished out 4 assists. Their bench really stepped up too, contributing a whopping 54 points. Jordan Clarkson dropped 16 points. John Collins had a double-double with 15 points and 10 boards, and Johnny Juzang chipped in with 10 points. The game began with both teams struggling to find their rhythm. The lower bowl was noticeably empty at tip-off, creating a quieter atmosphere. Despite the slow start, we saw some early highlights, especially from Castle, who drained 3 big threes, giving San Antonio an early lead. Wembanyama's paint dominance was immediately clear, helping the Spurs stay within 3 at the end of the first quarter. Let's go over some of the standout sequences. Late in the first quarter, Castle stole a pass and set up Keldon Johnson for an alley-oop that was a little awkward but got the job done. In the second quarter, Mamukelashvili deflected a pass in transition, leading to Wembanyama's 4th three-pointer of the half. These sequences showed the team's hustle, especially with Harrison Barnes getting in there for loose balls that younger players might give up on. San Antonio briefly pulled ahead in the second behind Wembanyama's shot-making. Markkanen got hot, hitting a smooth catch-and-shoot 3, which helped Utah go up by 8 at halftime. The Jazz continued to work the free-throw line, maintaining their lead. The third quarter was intense, with both teams going on multiple scoring runs. Wembanyama's 5th three-pointer and Barnes's inside scoring tied the game at 62. Utah's John Collins was crucial here, hitting big shots to keep the Jazz up by 9. San Antonio didn't back down, though, rallying back with a 10-0 run capped by a Vassell-assisted dunk from Zach Collins. Going into the fourth, Filipowski opened with a 5-0 personal run for the Jazz. Wembanyama then responded with a spin move and layup, tying the game at 87. San Antonio's offensive touch disappeared for a stretch, allowing Utah to pull ahead. Still, there were jaw-dropping plays, like Castle's daring drive through Utah's defense to tie it at 93. In the final minutes, Jordan Clarkson hit a clutch 3, and then Sexton came through with a tip-back to put Utah up. The game's intensity only grew from there, with Wembanyama contesting shots and Johnson setting up Castle for a fast-break dunk. Unfortunately, the Spurs couldn't pull ahead, with Sexton and Clarkson making key free throws to seal Utah's win. Player of the game honors go to Victor Wembanyama, who not only scored 24 points, but also showcased his defensive skills with 16 rebounds and 7 blocks. His presence kept San Antonio in the game, and it's clear he's quickly establishing himself as one of the league's elite defenders. So that's the recap for this thrilling game. The Jazz managed to secure the win in the closing moments, edging out the Spurs 111-110. This game had everything, from standout performances by Wembanyama and Castle on the Spurs' side to key contributions from Markkanen, Sexton, and Clarkson for Utah. It was a hard-fought battle on both ends, making it clear that neither team was willing to back down. Now, let's move on to the next matchup of the night, the Nets versus the Cavaliers.
Their goal, which is the championship, trying to get to the top. And if you're trying to get to the top, that second half.
After falling just short in a 108-104 overtime loss to the Celtics the night before, the Brooklyn Nets hoped to bounce back against the league's top team, the Cleveland Cavaliers. However, despite a strong performance, the Nets fell 105-100, with Cleveland improving to a historic 11-0 start to the season, becoming the 12th team in NBA history to do so. The game started with Cleveland, led by Donovan Mitchell, taking control in the first quarter. Mitchell hit 4 of the Cavs' 6 three-pointers, and though the Nets kept the game close with timely answers from Dennis Schroeder, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Shake Milton, Cleveland finished the first quarter up 34-28. The second quarter showed Brooklyn's resilience. After falling behind by 15, they clawed their way back, thanks in large part to Cam Thomas, with help from a tough defensive stand that held Cleveland to just 13 points in the third quarter. Brooklyn went on a 33-5 run, leading 82-70 heading into the fourth. But the Cavaliers, as they have all season, didn't give up. With a strong fourth-quarter performance from Evan Mobley and Darius Garland, Cleveland turned the tide. Garland scored 8 of his 20 points in the final period, and Mobley dominated inside with 23 points and 16 rebounds, helping Cleveland rally to take the lead. Despite a three-pointer from Cam Johnson to give the Nets a 96-89 advantage, the Cavs went on a 10-0 run, capped by a dunk from Mobley to take control for good. Cleveland made 14 of 18 shots in the final quarter, holding Brooklyn off despite strong efforts from Cam Thomas, 22 points, and Cam Johnson, 23 points. This victory marked Cleveland's 11th consecutive win to start the season, making them the first team in history to achieve such a feat since the 2015-16 Golden State Warriors. As for the Nets, despite a valiant effort and a strong third quarter, they couldn't withstand Cleveland's late-game surge. Brooklyn now sits at 4-6 and will look to break their 2-game losing streak when they face the New Orleans Pelicans on Monday night. The Cavaliers, who are riding high on their impressive start, head to Chicago for their next matchup.
And he'll toss it up with Capella and Vucevic. In the opening tip to Atlanta, Andy Nagy and Brandon Schwab working with the veteran finals official Mark Davis here this evening.
After a hard-fought loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Brooklyn Nets are still trying to find consistency, falling to 4-6. Now, we turn our attention to a game that was filled with drama and fatigue. The Atlanta Hawks, who had been on a brutal stretch of back-to-back games, faced the Chicago Bulls in a matchup where fresh legs played a pivotal role. Hawks versus Bulls recap. The Hawks entered the game having dropped their previous matchup to the Detroit Pistons, and they were clearly feeling the effects of playing on consecutive nights. Despite building an 18-point lead, the Hawks couldn't sustain their momentum in the second half, as the Chicago Bulls, fresh from a night off, capitalized on their energy and urgency. The Bulls exploded in the fourth quarter, outscoring Atlanta 35-15, and came away with a 125-113 victory, marking the Hawks' second straight loss to drop them to 4-7 on the season. Fatigue strikes the Hawks. Trae Young, fresh off a strong showing in the loss to Detroit, struggled to carry the Hawks through this one. While he was solid in his playmaking, with 16 assists, he was stifled offensively for much of the game, only reaching double digits in points late in the third quarter. Young's defensive presence also made an impact early, holding Kobe White to a cold start, 0-3 shooting. However, as the game wore on, the fatigue from playing on consecutive nights began to show. Atlanta's defense faltered in the second half, and the Bulls capitalized, going on a 27-9 run that erased the Hawks' 18-point advantage. Impact of back-to-backs. The Hawks' struggles were amplified by their limited rotation. With key players like DeAndre Hunter and Bogdan Bogdanovic still sidelined, Atlanta found it difficult to match the Bulls' depth and fresh legs. In fact, the Hawks only managed 15 points in the fourth quarter, compared to the Bulls' 35. Clint Capella, who had been dominant in the first half with 16 points, also struggled in the second half, finishing with just 20 points. His fatigue was evident as the Bulls' rotational shifts disrupted his rhythm. Capella noted, "They were just running. That lineup was way faster and way more aggressive on the drives. It hurt us. Despite the fatigue, there were some bright spots for Atlanta. Dyson Daniels, playing stellar defense all season, continued to impress with 6 steals, following up his career-high 7 steals in Detroit. Daniels also chipped in offensively with 18 points, showcasing his development as a two-way player. Jalen Johnson, who has been stepping up this season, finished with 20 points and played a strong all-around game, but even his contributions couldn't keep up with the Bulls' surge. A major concern for the Hawks was their bench production. With Young playing 38 minutes, the second unit struggled, being outscored 48-26 by Chicago's reserves. The lack of scoring from the bench has been an issue for Atlanta all season, and Saturday's game only highlighted the gap. As Coach Quinn Snyder mentioned, that's all you can do is push through it, but the heavy legs and lack of depth became too much to overcome in the end. The Bulls were led by Coby White, who scored 18 points and dished out 5 assists. Nikola Vucevic was also a force, finishing with 18 points and 12 rebounds, while Zach LaVine added another 18 points. The Bulls had a balanced scoring attack, with 6 players in double figures, and their depth shined through in the second half. The Hawks, on the other hand, struggled to find consistent offensive output after Young went to the bench. And now, we move on to the next and final recap of the day. The Toronto Raptors taking on the Los Angeles Clippers. Stay tuned as we break down all the key moments and standout performances from this exciting matchup.
To kind of put into this team, it's all about patience, growth, and kind of building out the roster the way they kind of did it in the past.
The Atlanta Hawks couldn't hang on in the second half as they fell to the Chicago Bulls. And now we turn our attention to a crucial matchup between the Toronto Raptors and the Los Angeles Clippers. After a tough road stretch, the Raptors are hoping to rebound, but they face a formidable challenge in Los Angeles. Clippers versus Raptors recap. The Los Angeles Clippers are turning to Norman Powell as their go-to scorer, and he's been delivering, with both Kawhi Leonard still sidelined due to knee issues and Paul George now with the Philadelphia 76 ERs. Powell has embraced the role of leader, averaging a career-best 25.7 points per game. In the Clippers' 107-98 victory against the Sacramento Kings on Friday, Powell led the charge with 31 points, marking his third 30-point game of the season. James Harden added 22 points, while Ivica Zubac contributed 13 points and 15 rebounds. This win extended their streak to 3, and they now look to carry that momentum into their home game against the Raptors. Powell's scoring ability has been pivotal for the Clippers, especially early in the season. I'm just focused on the next play and making sure the play that I'm making is going to benefit the team, Powell said after the game. His productivity has been crucial in filling the scoring void left by the absence of Leonard, and it's clear the Clippers are relying on his offensive prowess to keep them competitive. On the other side, the Toronto Raptors are struggling on their 5-game road trip, having lost their first 2 games. They were outlasted by the Sacramento Kings 122-107 on Wednesday, despite strong performances from R.J. Barrett, 23 points, and Davion Mitchell, 20 points. The Raptors had a 4-point lead going into the final quarter, but were overwhelmed by the Kings' scoring barrage in the fourth, which ultimately sealed the win for Sacramento. Chris Boucher's 17-point bench effort couldn't make up for the Raptors' struggles in the final period, and their defense fell apart when it mattered most. We're doing the right things, and we just have to learn how to sustain that over the course of 48 minutes, Barrett said, echoing the frustration of a team that has shown flashes of brilliance but struggles to close out games. Barrett, in his first full season with the Raptors, has been a bright spot, averaging 25.7 points and 7 assists per game. The Raptors are also missing several key players, including Scotty Barnes, orbital fracture, and Emmanuel Quickley, pelvic contusion, which has made it even harder for them to find consistency. The Raptors' injuries have left their lineup thin, but players like Grady Dick, who is averaging 20 points per game, and Jakob Poeltl, who contributes 15 points and a team-high 11.4 rebounds, have stepped up. However, the team's struggles in closing games and their lack of depth are evident as they face another tough challenge in Los Angeles. Conclusion. The Raptors hope to bounce back against a Clippers team that has found a groove, thanks in large part to Powell's emergence as the team's scoring leader. With both teams facing issues related to injuries and depth, this promises to be an intriguing matchup. Overall, conclusion. There were some exciting NBA games today, with big performances from stars like Norman Powell and R.J. Barrett, as well as thrilling moments in the Hawks versus Bulls and Clippers versus Raptors matchups. We'll be back tomorrow with more recaps of today's games, so stay tuned for the latest NBA action.